Rain in Bellingham, Washington had its own sense of humor. It didn't pour, didn't thunder, didn't even apologize for showing up, it just hovered. A misty drizzle that coated the city in a perpetual soft blur, as though someone had turned down the contrast knob on reality. Cars hummed quietly along wet streets, puddles reflected neon coffee signs, and moss grew on everything that didn't move. Inside a narrow, brick apartment building on Cornwall Avenue, Evan Matthews, 34, leaned over his laptop, watching the progress bar on his design software inch forward like a snail at a meditation retreat. 98%, he muttered. It's been 98% for 12 minutes. That's not progress. That's psychological warfare. He sipped his coffee, cold. Naturally, his mug read, "Work in progress" in ironic lowercase. The sound of rain tapping against his window filled the silence between each small sigh. His workspace was a mix of effort and procrastination. A decent desk lamp, a plant that was probably dead, sticky notes with "finished portfolio" written 3 times, and a half-eaten bagel from 2 days ago. From the apartment below came the faint sound of indie music and a whirring espresso machine. The Riveras, the couple who ran Steambeam, the coffee cart that had become a kind of emotional support system for the entire building. Evan's internet flickered. The loading bar froze completely. He groaned. Why do I even pay for Wi-Fi? I could send carrier pigeons faster. Right on cue, Doris Keene, 65, appeared at his open door, balancing a tray of cookies. "Talking to your computer again, sweetie," she said, voice carrying that mix of grandmotherly judgment and genuine amusement. Evan grinned weakly. "I'm in the middle of a high-stakes staring contest with this progress bar." "Well," Doris said, walking in and setting the cookies down. "Maybe it's teaching you patience. I'd rather learn through YouTube tutorials. That's what your neighbor Gabe says before he electrocutes himself fixing toasters." She gave him that knowing smirk and left as quickly as she came, muttering something about young people needing hobbies that don't involve pixels. Evan turned back to his screen. 99%. He held his breath. A faint flicker. Then, crash. Error. Connection lost. He facepalmed. "I swear, if Karma has a loading bar, it's stuck at 1% for me." "There are moments," the narrator chimed in, "when time slows down so much, you begin to hear your own sanity buffering." Downstairs, Leo Rivera called up, "Evan. Coffee refill." Evan yelled back, "Only if it comes with reliable internet." "Sorry, man," Leo replied. "That's an upcharge." By late morning, the drizzle had turned to soft sunlight filtering through the blinds, giving the room a deceptive sense of productivity. Evan opened another file, determined to actually finish his freelance project, an ad design for a local brewery. The file opened. The cursor blinked. His creative flow didn't. He paced, checked his phone, scrolled through motivational quotes. One read, "Progress is progress, no matter how small." He laughed. "Sure, tell that to my progress bar." A soft knock interrupted him. It was Gabe Thompson, the building's unofficial tech guy, holding a tangled mess of wires. "Your router's been blinking like it's possessed. Thought I'd give it a quick exorcism." Evan gestured dramatically. "By all means, save us all." Gabe squatted by the router, muttering like a field medic. "You know," he said, "people always think Wi-Fi's the problem. Sometimes it's the mindset." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Are you giving me tech therapy right now?" "Hey, man," Gabe said, shrugging. "Loading bars are like life. Sometimes the data's just catching up. Or sometimes it's just broken. Same difference." They shared a laugh. Gabe gave the router a light smack. The Wi-Fi flickered back to life. Miraculously, the progress bar jumped to 100%. Evan blinked. "That worked." Gabe grinned. "I call it the Bellingham reboot." The rest of the afternoon slid by in comic monotony. Doris returned once to check if the young man had learned patience. Leo and Hannah sent up a fresh cinnamon latte, with foam art shaped like a loading icon. The irony was not lost on Evan. Outside, the neighborhood began its weekend hum, students biking to the marina, retirees walking dogs in matching raincoats, and street performers tuning guitars under umbrellas. Bellingham was the kind of town that never rushed, even when it was late. By 5 p.m., Evan's day had improved marginally. He'd finished 2 small tasks, eaten a reheated burrito, and stopped yelling at his computer. Progress. Tiny, snail-paced, but progress. He leaned back, glancing at the slow sunset outside. Clouds broke apart, revealing streaks of pink and orange reflected on wet pavement. He sighed contentedly, until the Wi-Fi dropped again. Of course, life enjoys comedic timing more than resolution. As Evan rebooted everything again, Doris's laughter echoed faintly from downstairs. The Rivera's coffee cart lights blinked on for the evening crowd. Music drifted up from a nearby patio, something acoustic and hopeful. Evan muttered to himself, "Okay, maybe the loading bar isn't evil. Maybe it's just realistic." He looked around his apartment, messy but alive, cluttered but cozy. The smell of cookies mixed with coffee and the faint buzz of rain starting up again. Maybe this was what progress looked like. Not flashy, not immediate, but steady, a town of slow servers and patient souls. He grabbed a cookie, toasted the air, and said, "To slow progress, may it at least come with snacks." And somewhere in that dimly lit apartment, amidst half-done projects and slow Wi-Fi, something quietly downloaded: patience. Morning sunlight filtered through half-closed blinds, striping Evan Matthews's cluttered apartment like yellow highlighter marks on the day ahead. Outside, Bellingham stretched and yawned, shop owners unlocking doors, cyclists gliding by puddles that hadn't quite evaporated, the faint hiss of espresso machines echoing from steam beam below. Evan sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop balanced precariously on one knee, watching another loading bar crawl forward. This time, it wasn't for work, it was a software update. Because apparently, he muttered, even computers need therapy sessions. He took a sip of his coffee already lukewarm, a theme in his life, glanced at his to-do list, and smirked. Okay, today's mission, finish something. Anything, doesn't even have to be big. Just, not quit halfway like yesterday's burrito. This is the emotional thesis of adulthood, trying to finish a burrito without your life falling apart. Outside, the drizzle had turned into one of those deceptive half-rains that only the Pacific Northwest could produce. Wet enough to ruin your hair, not enough to justify an umbrella. Evan threw on a flannel jacket, hoodie underneath, jeans, and sneakers that had long given up on staying dry. Downstairs, Leo and Hannah Rivera were already serving customers. The smell of cinnamon and roasted beans hit him before the door even opened. "Morning, Evan," Hannah chirped. "Want your usual?" "Yeah, but can you make it optimistic?" Leo raised an eyebrow. "Optimistic? You know, like, it believes I'll finish my work today." "Coming right up," Leo said, pretending to whisper to the coffee machine. "He's had a rough week." As Evan waited, he looked around the street, a quirky collage of Bellingham personalities. Doris was chatting animatedly with Gabe Thompson, who was carrying what looked suspiciously like an old microwave. "It's for parts," Gabe insisted. Doris just shook her head. "That's what you said about the last 3 microwaves." Inside the cafe, a local musician tuned his guitar in the corner, humming something mellow. College students typed furiously on laptops, their screens glowing with, probably the same uncooperative loading bars. Life, like bandwidth, was limited for everyone here. When his coffee arrived, Evan took it to go and sat on a nearby bench under a damp awning. He opened his laptop, determined to upload the final ad design for his brewery client, the Lazy Hop. Appropriate name, really. He clicked, submit. The progress bar appeared. 1%, 2%, 3%. He sighed. Here we go again. The human brain isn't designed for loading bars. It's designed for instant validation, snacks, and the illusion of productivity. As the upload crawled forward, neighbors passed by, each interrupting his anxious staring contest with destiny. Doris appeared with a book. "You look like you're waiting for enlightenment." "Close. File upload." She sat beside him. "Same thing, these days." The progress bar hit 27%. A dog barked. Somewhere, a bicycle bell chimed. The scent of espresso drifted in rhythmic waves. For a moment, time slowed, but pleasantly. Evan chuckled. "You ever feel like life's just a loading screen that never fully completes?" Doris patted his shoulder. "Of course. That's why they invented chocolate." By noon, Evan's file had reached 99%. He refused to look away, afraid of jinxing it. Then, error, network timeout. He groaned so loudly half the cafe turned. "Everything okay?" Leo called. "No," Evan replied. "Life's buffering again." Laughter rippled across the tables. Hannah handed him a cookie on the house, shaped like a spinning loading icon. "Symbolic snack," she said. "Perfect," Evan said, taking a bite. "Tastes like broken dreams and sugar." Later that afternoon, Gabe stopped by carrying tools. "You still struggling with uploads? Is it that obvious? You've got the 1,000-yard Wi-Fi stare, man. Come on, I'll help you set up a stronger router." The two climbed up to the apartment, maneuvering around cords and half-drunk coffee cups. Gabe fiddled with the new hardware like a tech surgeon, while Evan observed helplessly. Finally, Gabe said, "All right. Should be faster now." Evan clicked, "Upload," again. The bar zipped, 10%, 30%, 70%, and froze at 99%. Both men stared at it like it was an approaching UFO. Gabe whispered, "If it crashes now, I'm moving to a monastery." And then, success. File uploaded. They both threw their arms up in triumph. Doris, hearing the cheer from downstairs, shouted, "Did someone finally finish something?" "Yes," Evan yelled. "Civilization can progress again." And thus, the narrator said dryly, a small man in a small apartment achieved the modern miracle, completing a file upload. The digital Mount Everest. To celebrate, they all gathered outside later that evening. The drizzle had stopped. The Riveras pulled out string lights over their coffee cart, and neighbors drifted in, drawn by the smell of pastries and the rare sight of dry pavement. Someone brought a speaker. Someone else brought homemade cider. Evan watched as the community, this odd, patchwork mix of creatives, retirees, and caffeine addicts, came together without planning it. Doris laughed loudly at one of Gabe's bad puns. Leo was handing out free samples. Kids chalked doodles on the sidewalk. It wasn't a big party, just enough noise to remind everyone they were alive and loading along together. Hannah handed Evan a fresh cup. "So, did the project pay off?" "Still waiting for the client's response," he said, shrugging. "But honestly, I think I already got what I needed." "What's that?" "Proof that slow doesn't mean stuck." "See," the narrator chimed in, "some people measure life by how fast things load. Others eventually realize, maybe it's better when it takes its sweet time." As twilight rolled in, the air smelled faintly of sea salt and coffee. The lights reflected off the damp pavement like stars trying to sneak into the city. Evan leaned against the railing, his laptop bag beside him, and smiled. He thought about his week, the frozen screens, the spilled coffee, the laughter echoing up from the cart, the patience he didn't know he had. Maybe life wasn't supposed to load all at once. Maybe it came in patches, 1% at a time, building towards something quietly complete. Doris clinked her cider bottle against his coffee cup. "To progress," she said. "Even when it's slow. Especially when it's slow. Because here's the truth," the narrator concluded, voice fading into the night air, "no one really arrives. We just buffer beautifully, together." The music rose. Something acoustic, cheerful, perfectly imperfect. People laughed, danced a little, and the screen of the small cafe TV flickered to a paused video showing, coincidentally, a loading circle. Evan looked up, smiled, and said under his breath, "Guess that's life." And for once, he didn't mind waiting.
Like and subscribe if you want daily dose of happiness and motivation.